Lesson 9.6, factoring trinomials in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. Previously, we have only done trinomials that have had the lead coefficient of 1. Starting today, they may or may not have lead coefficients other than that. So an example like right here in number 1, where this is no longer just an x squared, it's now a 2x squared. So this entire lesson is not going to be any different than what we've done in the past, only it's just going to be a little bit more complex, right? So every day is just a little bit harder than the previous one, but that just means you're making progression. That's what we're supposed to be doing in here. So this lesson, and really the next couple, if you're a good problem solver and you like puzzles and maybe things that make you think, you will like these. You will enjoy them. It's kind of fun. If you don't enjoy that, so you like just straightforward things, not really have to think too hard, just give me the steps and I repeat the same steps over and over and over, these probably are not going to be your favorite. So hopefully you're more of the puzzle track and not so much of the straightforward track, and you'll like it a little better, but we'll see. All right, so example 1, 2x squared minus 7x plus 3. Like I said before, previously we've only had a 1 here. So you knew that starting out, the only thing you had to have in the beginning was an x squared. Sorry, was an x, because you knew that it multiplied together to get the x squared. Well, that you only could do that only because you knew that the coefficients on both of those would be a 1. So 1 times 1 would give us our 1. But now this is no longer a 1. It's now a 2, which tells you that it has to be 2x times 1x, or just 2x times x. That's how you get the 2x squared. So they have to multiply together to get that first term. Still works the same way that it multiplies together to get the last term. Okay? So I have to have things that multiply together to get a positive 3. So you have some options. You have positives. You also have negatives. Because this is a negative 7x in the middle, that right there should tell you that it's not going to be positives. It has to be this one. But again, where would you put it? You have an option of either a negative 1 here and a negative 3 here, or vice versa. Negative 3 over here and negative 1. Previously, whenever you didn't have this other coefficient over here, it didn't really matter, right? Because, I mean, you multiplied it together, great. Well, now, whenever you've got it, whichever one goes back here is the one that gets multiplied to the 2. So it matters. So here's what you need to think. I need to get really close to 7. So would multiplying 2 times a negative 1 get me closer to 7? Or multiplying a negative 3 times 2 get me closer to 7? If you think of it that way, I would probably try this first, which is the reason why I always have you do math in pencil anyways, because if it doesn't work, well, you just switch it out and try that. So let's try it. 2 times a negative 3, that gives me a negative 6x. And a negative 1 times x, that gives me my negative 1x. And if I add those together, that gives me this middle term right here of negative 7x. So if you want to check it, you can multiply it back out. That would be 2x squared minus 1x minus 6x. There's our negative 7x. And a positive 3. So again, you may be thinking, okay, what just happened there? You're going to have to think. You're going to have to try some possibilities. If you want to make a chart like they have right below this, if you want to make a chart, if that helps you about all the things that you need to do, you can. In the past, and I know personally it doesn't really do much for me, but you may be more of a person that has to list it all out. And if that's fine, that works for you too. Let's try the next one. Factor 3n squared plus 14n minus 5. 3n squared plus 14n minus 5. The only difference on this one, it says whenever c is negative. So just that last term there is negative. But what does that tell us? If that last term is negative, then that means there has to be a plus, there has to be a minus. And before, it didn't really matter. You could put the plus here and the minus here or vice versa. But now, since this has to go here, 3 has to go somewhere. It does not matter if it goes at the beginning or the end. But it does, you just have to pick one. And now I'm going to say, okay, so to multiply together to get a negative 5, my options are negative 5 and a positive 1, or negative 1 and a positive 5. I am going to have to multiply these things together where they get to be a positive 14. So if I need a positive 14, this is already positive, I probably need to multiply that by something that's going to get me close to a positive 14. So already your brain should probably be thinking, okay, this positive 3 probably needs to go with a positive 5. Now, whenever I say go with it, I don't mean in the same parentheses. I mean whenever it's multiplied together, you would need to think, okay, that needs to be multiplied with a positive 5, so it's going to have to go in the back. And if I choose a positive 5, then that means the other one has to be a negative 1. And if you do that, that would give me my 15n and my negative 1n. That's how I get a positive 14n. Again, if you want to multiply it back out and check it, 3n squared, a negative 1n, and a positive 15n gives me my positive 14n and a negative 5. So again, if you're puzzle people, like I hope you are puzzle people, then you should be okay on these. Okay? Let's try the next page. Here's some examples. Let's just try one. Let's just try number 2, one right in the middle. So I know that I've got a 4s squared. So right there I should be thinking that I have more than one possibility because there's more than one way to get a 4. Okay, so I could have a 4 and a 1, or I could also have a 2 and a 2. So we can try it either way. But I know that I'm going to have to get something with a negative 9. It's going to have to multiply together to get a negative 9. And, sorry, add together to get a negative 9. If I have to add together to get a negative and I'm multiplying together to get a positive, that right there tells me that I'm going to have 2 negatives being multiplied together in order to get that positive, but yet add together to get that. Okay, so let's try some and see what happens. Let's first try a 4s. If this is a 4s, then this is a 1s. 4s and a 1s. I know I'm going to have to do a negative 5. So I probably, in my own head, this is what I'm thinking. I probably am not going to want to multiply that by a positive 4. That's going to get me a negative 20, which is way too big. So if I don't want this being multiplied by the 4, I probably need to put it right next to it. And then that would put this one over here. So now if I multiply that together, that gives me negative 5s. And if I multiply these together, that gives me my negative 4s. And Alakazam, magical math. Negative 9s. That's what we've got. So this makes my 4s squared. These two together make my negative 9s. Those multiplied together give me my positive 5. Okay? Again, if I were you, I would probably try some of these just to see where you're at on that. And as always, you can come in and ask questions on this part tomorrow. Example 3. Now, the only thing different on example 3 is that, again, they add one more thing to it, but you just got to take care of that one thing at the beginning. If you notice, the only thing on this one that would be different that we've never had before, yes, we've had a coefficient in front, but that coefficient's never been negative. So we don't need the lead coefficient ever to be negative when you try to factor. It just throws everything off. So I need to take that out. I need to factor a negative out of that from the very beginning. So factor a negative 1 out. So that means I'm going to be dividing this by negative 1, this by negative 1, this by negative 1. That's what it means to factor it out. I need to divide it all. So that means the first one is now a positive 4x squared, a negative 12x, and a negative 7. Whenever I factor that, make sure that that negative, you don't have to keep the 1, but you do have to keep the negative whenever you factor those into two binomials. Okay, needs to multiply together to get a negative 7. We're going to try, just because it worked for us last time, let's try it. 4x and an x. May not. We may have to switch it to 2 and 2, but let's just see what happens. I know I'm not going to want to multiply 7 times that because it'll be a 28 and be way too big. So let's just try minus 7 and if it's negative, then that's going to have to be a positive 1. Now, looking at that, this would give me 4x squared which is what I need. This would give me a negative 7x. This would give me a positive 4x. If I put those together, I don't get negative 12x. So that means this cannot be the answer. So let's try another combination, which is the reason, again, you have an eraser just like I have an eraser. So maybe instead of doing 4, maybe we ought to try the other thing that will multiply together to get 4x. Let's try a 2x and a 2x. That's a 4x squared. So again, the only thing I can multiply together to get this would be a negative. Now, I can make negative 7 and a positive 1, or I could do a negative 1 and a positive 7. But again, here's where your mind should go. I need it to be a negative, which means I need my negative to be bigger than my positive. So I'm going to stick that negative with the 7 and make the 1 a positive. Let's try this one out. Negative 14, positive 2. Negative 14x and a positive 2x. That's where my negative 12x comes in. So now that I have that, I know that this is my correct combination. And again, if I want to multiply it back out, I can, just to check it. It's all a big puzzle. Look at all these big pieces right here that they have. They did 1 and 4, and they did 2 and 2. They tried all these different combinations. But if you notice, every time you put it in a different spot, there's only one of those right there that gives me my correct middle term, and that's this one. So you may have to try multiple times. So just because you try one and it doesn't work, doesn't mean that somehow you don't know what you're doing or you can't get it. It just means you haven't tried the right combination yet. So just try and try and try again. Be like the little engine that could. I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. Okay. Try a couple here at the bottom, and then we'll be done. So let's try first one, number 4. Again, cannot have the lead coefficient being a negative, so I'm going to factor out a negative. I can't factor out a 2 because they all don't have a 2, but I can take a negative, which will leave me 2y plus 5y plus 3. So make sure you bring that negative down with your two binomials. The only way I can get a 2 is with a 2. Sorry, that's a squared. A 2y and a y, so at least that eliminates some of them. A 2y and a y. I need a positive 3, and this one's positive. So that means I probably need to stick with pluses on both of them. So I don't need a 3 times 2. That's already too big. It's bigger than 5, and I'm going to have nothing to subtract it. So my 3 cannot go here. My 3 needs to go here. So 3y, 2y, that gives me the middle. 2y times y is y squared. 2y squared, 3 times 1, 3. Let's go and try number 4. Factor out a negative. You would end up with 5m squared minus 6m plus 1. And again, if you don't take that negative out of everything, you're going to end up with the wrong signs here and virtually impossible to factor sometimes. Okay, 5, the only way to get a 5 is with a 5m and a 1m. So kind of looked at a little bit there. Has to multiply together to get a negative 1, but see, you have to add together to get a 6. So multiply, that means that they both need to be negative. The only way to get a 1 is with a 1 and a 1, so that one would be easy as well. Negative 5m minus 1 and 1m minus 1. So again, just try and try and try again. Hope you like puzzles. You're going to be getting lots of practice with them. Okay? As always, try hard, try a little bit harder than that. And if you still have questions, come see me.